Motörhead are an English heavy metal hard rock band formed in June 1975 by bassist, singer and songwriter Ian Fraser Kilmister, professionally known by his stage name Lemmy, who has remained the sole constant member. The band are often considered a precursor to, or one of the earliest members of, the new wave of British heavy metal, which re-energized heavy metal in the late 1970s and early 1980s. As of November 2013, Motörhead have released 21 studio albums, 10 live recordings, 12 compilation albums and 5 EPs. Usually a power trio, they had particular success in the early 1980s with several successful singles in the UK Top 40 chart. The albums Overkill, Bomber, Ace of Spades, and particularly No Sleep Till Hammersmith, cemented Motörhead's reputation as a top-tier rock band. As of 2012, Motörhead have sold more than 30 million albums worldwide. Motörhead are typically classified as heavy metal, and their fusion of punk rock into the genre helped to pioneer speed metal and thrash metal. Their lyrics typically cover such topics as war, good versus evil, abuse of power, promiscuous sex, substance abuse, and, most famously, gambling. The name Motörhead is a reference to users of the drug amphetamine. The band's distinctive fanged face logo, with its oversized boar's tusks, chains, and spikes, was created by artist Joe Pettigrew in 1977 for the cover of the Motörhead album and has appeared in many variations on covers of ensuing albums. The fanged face has been referred to variously as War Pig and Snaggletooth. The band is ranked number 26 on VH1's 100 Greatest Artists of Hard Rock. History, 1970s, 1975 Euro 1977 Euro early years Euro the Motörhead album. Lemmy was fired from Hawkwind in May 1975 for, as he says, doing the wrong drugs. He was arrested on suspicion of possessing cocaine at the Canadian border and spent 5 days in prison, causing the band to cancel some of their North America tour dates. Now on his own, Lemmy decided to form a new band called Motörhead, inspired by the final song he had written for Hawkwind. Lemmy wanted the music to be fast and vicious, just like the MC5. His stated aim was to concentrate on very basic music, loud, fast, city, raucous, arrogant, paranoid, speed freak rock and roller. It will be so loud that if we move in next door to you, your lawn will die. On the recommendation of Mick Farron, he recruited Larry Wallace on electric guitar and Lucas Fox on drums. According to Lemmy, the band's first practice was in a furniture store in Chelsea, England in 1975. Kilmister has said they used to steal equipment, as the band was short on gear. Their first engagement was supporting Greenslade at the Roundhouse, London on July 20, 1975. On October 19, having played 10 engagements, they became the supporting act to Blue Oyster Cult at the Hammersmith Odeon. The band were contracted to United Artists by Andrew Lauder, the A&R man for the band Lemmy was previously in, Hawkwind. They recorded sessions at Rockfield Studios in Monmouth with producer Dave Edmunds, during which Fox proved to be unreliable and was replaced by drummer Phil "Filthy Animal" Taylor, a casual acquaintance of Lemmy's. Their record label was dissatisfied with the material and refused to release it, although it was subsequently issued as on parole in 1979 after the band had established some success. In March 1976, deciding that 2 guitarists were required, the band auditioned Fast Eddie Clarke. Wallace, who was continuing to tour with the reformed Pink Fairies, quit immediately after the auditions and Clarke remained as the sole guitarist. This trio of Lemmy Taylor is today regarded as the classic Motörhead lineup. In December, the band recorded the Leaving Here single for Stiff Records, but United Artists intervened to prevent its general release as the band was still under contract to them, despite their refusal to issue their debut album. Initial reactions to the band had been unfavorable. They won a poll for the best-worst band in the world in the music magazine NME. By April 1977, living in squats and with little recognition, Taylor and Clarke wanted to give it up, and after some debate, the band agreed to do a farewell show at the Marquee Club in London. Lemmy had become acquainted with Ted Carroll from Chiswick Records and asked him to bring a mobile studio to the show to record it for posterity. Carroll was unable to get the mobile unit to the Marquee Club but showed up backstage after the engagement and offered them 2 days at Escape Studios with producer Speedy Keen to record a single. The band took the chance, and instead of recording a single they laid down 11 unfinished tracks. Carroll gave them a few more days at Olympic Studios to finish the vocals and the band completed 13 tracks for release as an album. Chiswick issued the single Motörhead in June, followed by the album ʻmoʊtərhɛd in August, which spent 1 week in the UK albums chart at number 43. The band toured the UK supporting Hawkwind in June, then from late July they commenced the Beyond the Threshold of Pain tour with the Count Bishops. In August, Tony Secunda took over the management of the band, and their cohesiveness became so unstable that by March 1978, Clark and Taylor had formed and were performing as the Muggers with Speedy Keen and Billy Raff. 1978 1979 a Rise to Success, Overkill and Bomber. In July 1978, the band returned to the management of Douglas Smith, who secured a one-off singles deal with Bronze Records. The resulting Louie Louie single was issued in September, peaking at number 68 on the UK singles chart, and the band toured the UK to promote it, recorded a BBC Radio 1 John Peel in session on September 18, and appeared for the first time on BBC Television's Top of the Pops on October 25. Chiswick capitalised on this new level of success by reissuing the debut album ʻmoʊtərhɛd on white vinyl through EMI Records. The single's success led to Bronze extending their contract, and put the band back into the studio to record an album, this time with producer Jimmy Miller at Roundhouse Studios. A hint of what the band had recorded for the album came on March 9, 1979 when the band played Overkill on Top of the Pops to support the release of the single ahead of the Overkill album, which was released on March 24. It became ʻmoʊtərhɛd's first album to break into the top 40 of the UK albums chart, reaching number 24, with the single reaching number 39 on the UK singles chart. These releases were followed by the Overkill UK tour which began on March 23. A subsequent single was released in June, coupling the album track No Class as the A-side with a previously unreleased song Like a Nightmare on the B-side. It fared worse than both the album and previous single but reached number 61 on the UK singles chart. During July and August, except for a break to appear at the Reading Festival, the band were working on their next album, Bomber. Released on October 27, it reached number 12 on the UK albums chart. On December 1, it was followed by the Bomber single, which reached number 34 on the UK singles chart. The Bomber Europe and UK tour followed, with support from Saxon. The stage show featured a spectacular aircraft bomber-shaped lighting rig. During the Bomber tour, United Artists put together tapes recorded during the Rockfield Studios sessions in 1975 1976 and released them as the album On Parole, which peaked at number 65 on the UK albums chart in December. On May 8, 1980, while the band were on tour in Europe, Bronze released The Golden Years, which sold better than any of their previous releases, reaching number 8 on the UK singles chart. The band had, however, preferred the title Flying Tonight, in reference to the Bomber lighting rig. On August 20, the band and Girl School were filmed performing live at the Nottingham Theatre Royal for the Rock Stage programme, broadcast on UK television by the ATV station on April 4, 1981. 1980s, 1980 1982 Ace of Spades and Iron Fist. During August and September 1980, the band were at Jackson Studios in Rickmansworth, recording with producer Vic Mail. The Ace of Spades single was released on October 27, 1980 as a preview of the Ace of Spades album, which followed on November 8. The single reached no A15 and the album reached no A4 on the UK charts. Bronze celebrated its gold record status by pressing a limited edition of the album in gold vinyl. ʻmoʊtərhɛd made an appearance on Top of the Pops in November that year with Ace of Spades, and between October 22 and November 29 the band were on their Ace Up Your Sleeve UK tour with support from Girl School and Vardis, and also made an appearance as guests on the ITV children's show Tis Was on November 8. The Arizona desert-style pictures used on the album sleeve and tour booklet cover were taken during a photo session at a sand pit in Barnet. Ace of Spades, considered to be the definitive Motörhead anthem, put a choke on the English music charts and proved to all that a band could succeed without sacrificing its blunt power and speed. To coincide with the Ace of Spades release, Big Beat, who had inherited the Chiswick catalogue, put together 4 unused tracks from the Escape Studios sessions in 1977 and released them as Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers, which reached no. 43 on the UK singles chart in November. The band had more chart hits in 1981 with the releases St. Valentine's Day Massacre EP, their collaboration with Girls' School which reached no. 5 on the UK singles chart in February. The live version of Motörhead, which reached no. 6 on the UK singles chart in July. And the album it was taken from, No Sleep Till Hammersmith, which reached no. 1 on the UK albums chart in June. During March 1981, the band had been touring Europe, and in the final week of the month they conducted the short Sharp, Pain in the Neck UK tour from which the recordings for No Sleep Till Hammersmith were made. From April through to July, the band toured North America for the first time as guests of Blizzard of Oz, an early incarnation of Ozzy Osbourne's band, but was still able to make an appearance on Top of the Pops on July 9 to promote the live Motörhead single. In October the band recorded tracks at BBC's Maida Vale 4 studio for the David Jensen Show broadcast on October 6. The band commenced a European tour on November 20, supported by Tank, followed by Clark producing Tank's debut album Filth Hounds of Hades at Rampart Studios in December and January. Between 26 and 28 January 1982, the band started recording their self-produced new album at Rampart Studios, before moving on to Morgan Studios to continue the sessions throughout February. On April 3 the single Iron Fist was released, reaching no. 29 on the UK singles chart, followed by the parent album Iron Fist, released on April 17 and peaking at no. 6 on the UK albums chart. They were the last releases to feature the Lemmy, Clark, Taylor lineup, though the lineup continued to perform in the Iron Fist UK tour between March 17 and April 12, and the band's first headlining North America tour from May 12 until Clark's last engagement at the New York Palladium on May 14, 1982. A 1984 AA departures from the band and Another Perfect Day. Clark left as a consequence of the band recording Stand By Your Man, a cover version of the Tammy Wynette classic, in collaboration with Wendy O. Williams and the Plasmatics. Clark felt that the song compromised the band's principles, refused to play on the recording and resigned, later forming his own band, Fastway. Lemmy and Taylor made numerous telephone calls to find a guitarist, including one to Brian Robertson, formerly with Thin Lizzy, who was recording a solo album in Canada. He agreed to help out and complete the tour with them. Robertson signed a one-album deal resulting in 1983's Another Perfect Day and the 2 singles from it, Shine, and I Got Mine. In June and July the band played 5 dates in Japan, and from mid-October until mid-November they toured Europe. From late May until early July, the band conducted the Another Perfect tour, followed by an American tour between July and August, and another European tour in October and November. Robertson began to cause friction in the band as a result of his onstage attire, consisting of shorts and ballet shoes, and, furthermore, with his point-blank refusal to play the old standards that every Motörhead audience expected to hear. This led to an amicable agreement that Robertson would leave, playing his last engagement with the band at the Berlin Metropole on November 11. After Robertson's departure in 1983, the band was sent tapes from all over the world from potential guitarists. The group returned to the concept of dual lead guitars by hiring unknowns ʻmoʊtərhɛd and Phil Campbell. In February 1984, the Lemmy, Campbell Washington ʻmoʊtərhɛd and Taylor lineup recorded Ace of Spades for the Bambi episode in the British television series, The Young Ones. Scenes of the band playing are interspersed with the characters' antics as they rush to the railway station, in a parody of the Beatles' comedy film A Hard Day's Night. Taylor quit the band after that recording, causing Lemmy to quip, "Did I leave them or did they leave me?" Before joining Motörhead, Phil Campbell had met ex-Saxon drummer Pete Gill, and the trio decided to call him to see if he would like to visit London. The tryouts went well and Gill was hired. 1984 1985 No Remorse, Bronze Records thought the new lineup would not make the grade and decided to nail down the lid on the group with a compilation album. When Lemmy found out, he took over the project, selecting tracks, providing sleeve notes and insisted that Motörhead record 4 brand new tracks to go at the end of each side of the album. During the sessions between 19th and 25th May 1984 at Britannia Row Studios, London, the band recorded 6 tracks for the singles B-side and the album. The single Killed by Death was released on September 1 and reached No. 51 in the UK singles chart. The double album No Remorse was released on September 15 and reached silver disc status, attaining the position of No. 14 in the UK album charts. The band were involved in a court case with Bronze over the next 2 years, believing that their releases were not being promoted properly, and the record company banned them from the recording studio. The band looked to more touring for income. Australia and New Zealand in late July to late August, a brief tour of Hungary in September, and the No Remorse Death on the Road tour between October 24 and November 7. On October 26 the band made a live appearance on the British Channel 4 music programme The Tube, performing Killed by Death, Steal Your Face, and the unbroadcast Overkill, before going on to their next engagement that evening. From November 19 to December 15 the band toured America with Canadian speed metal band Exciter and Danish metal band Merciful Fate, and from 26 to December 30 performed 5 shows in Germany. On April 5, 1985, ITV broadcast 4 songs that were recorded after the band went off-air on their earlier appearance on the Tube programme. A week later the band, dressed in tuxedos, played 4 songs on the live Channel 4 music show ECT. To celebrate the band's 10th anniversary, 2 shows were arranged at Hammersmith Odeon on 28 and 29 June. A video of the second show was taken and later released as the birthday party. From early June until early August the band were on their It Never Gets Dark tour of Sweden and Norway. An American tour followed in mid-November until late December 1986 1989 Orgasmatron and Rock 'n' Roll. From March 26 to April 3, 1986, the band toured Germany, the Netherlands and Denmark on their Easter Metal Blast, and in June, played 2 dates in Bologna and Milan in Italy. The court case with Bronze was finally settled in the band's favor. The band's management instigated their own label, GWR. Recording took place in Master Rock Studios, London, and the single Deaf Forever was released on July 5 as a taster for the Orgasmatron album, which was released on August 9. On the same day as the release of the album, Lemmy and ʻmoʊtərhɛd were interviewed by Andy Kershaw on the BBC Radio 1 Saturday live show, and Orgasmatron and Deaf Forever were played. The single reached No. 67 and the album reached No. 21 in the UK charts. On August 16, the band played at the Monsters of Rock at Castle Donington and was recorded by BBC Radio 1 for a future Friday rock show broadcast. The performance closed with a flyover by a couple of Second World War German aircraft. Also that day Lemmy was filmed giving his views on spoof metal act Bad News for inclusion in a Peter Richardson comic strip film entitled More Bad News, since the band featuring Rick Mayall, Peter Richardson, Nigel Planer and Adrian Edmondson were also performing at Donington. In September the band conducted their Orgasmatron tour in Great Britain, supported by fledgling acts Zodiac Mindwhip and The Love Reaction. In October they toured America and in December were in Germany. In 1987, during the filming of Eat the Rich in which Lemmy was taking a starring role alongside well-known comedy actors such as Robbie Coltrane, Kathy Burke, the regulars from the comic strip ensemble, and various other musician cameo appearances, Gill left the band and Taylor returned to appear in the band's cameo as in-house club band alongside ʻmoʊtərhɛd and Campbell. The band wrote Eat the Rich especially for the film. Its soundtrack featured tracks from Orgasmatron and ʻmoʊtərhɛd's solo single Bass. The band's second album for GWR was Rock 'n' Roll, released on September 5, after a tight work schedule in the studio. While having some popular tracks and using Eat the Rich as its second track, the band commented that the album was virtually nailed together. On July 2, 1988, Motörhead were one of the performers at the Giants of Rock Festival in Helsinki, Finland. The tracks were released as No Sleep at All on October 15. A single from the album was planned with the band wanting Traitor as the A-side, but Ace of Spades was chosen instead. When the band noticed the change, they refused to allow the single to be distributed to the shops, and it was withdrawn and became available only on the No Sleep at All tour and through the Motörhead Bangers fan club. While they continued to play live shows during 1989 and 1990, Motörhead once again felt unhappy with their career, and a court case with GWR followed, which was not resolved until mid-1990. 1990s, 1990 Euro 1992 AA Euro Epic WTG years, 1916 and Motörhead, with the court case resolved, Motörhead signed to Epic WTG and spent the last half of 1990 recording a new album and single in Los Angeles. Just prior to the album sessions, the band's former manager, Doug Smith, released the recording of the band's 10th anniversary show, much against the band's wishes, having previously told him that they did not want it released, in 1986. In the studio they recorded 4 songs with the producer, Ed Stasium, before deciding he had to go. When Lemmy listened to one of the mixes of Going to Brazil, he asked for him to turn up 4 tracks, and on doing so heard claves and tambourines that Stasium had added without their knowledge. Stasium was fired and Pete Soley was hired as producer. The story according to Stasium was that Lemmy's drug and alcohol intake had far exceeded the limitations of Stasium's patience, so he quit. The single The One to Sing the Blues issued on December 24, 1990 and January 5, 1991, was followed by the album 1916 on January 21. The single, which was issued in 7 inches, cassette-shaped picture disc, 12, and CD single, reached no A45 in the UK singles chart. The album reached no A24 in the UK album charts. The band conducted their It Serves You Right tour of Britain in February. The Lights Out Over Europe tour followed, lasting until early April, when the band returned to Britain to play another 6 venues. In June the band played 5 dates in Japan and 5 dates in Australia and New Zealand. Between July and August, he played across the United States with Judas Priest, Alice Cooper and opener Dangerous Toys on the Operation Rock 'n' Roll tour. The band finished the year with 6 dates in Germany during December. On March 28, 1992 the band played what would turn out to be Taylor's last engagement at Irvine Meadows, Irvine, California. The band had been wanting Lemmy to get rid of their manager, Doug Banker, for some time, and after an unsolicited visit from Todd Singerman, who insisted he should manage them despite never having managed a band before, the band met with Singerman and decided to take him on board, firing Banker. In the midst of this, the band were recording an album at Music Grinder Studios, in the city's east part of Hollywood during the 1992 Los Angeles riots. 3 drummers participated in the making of the Motörhead album: Phil Taylor, who was fired because he did not learn the drum tracks on the song I Ain't No Nice Guy; Tommy Aldridge, who recorded most of the material on the album; and Mickey D, who recorded Hellraiser, a song originally written by Lemmy for Ozzy Osbourne's No More Tears album. The Motörhead album features guest appearances by Ozzy Osbourne and Slash. 1993 Euro 1994 AA Euro Bastards. Lemmy had known Mickey D from the time when King Diamond had toured with Motörhead. He had asked D to become Motörhead's drummer before, but D had declined due to his commitment to King Diamond. On this occasion, D was available and met the band to try out. Playing the song Hellraiser first, Lemmy thought he was very good immediately. It was obvious that it was going to work. After recording Hellraiser, and Hell on Earth in the studio, D's first engagement with Motörhead was on August 30 at the Saratoga Performing Arts Center. The new lineup then went on tour, playing dates with Ozzy Osbourne, Stu Siskin and Exodus. On September 27, The band played at the Los Angeles Coliseum with Metallica and Guns N' Roses. The band toured Argentina and Brazil during October and conducted the Bombers and Eagles in '92 tour of Europe with Saxon throughout December. Motörhead played 2 dates at the Arena Obras Sanitarias in Buenos Aires in April 1993 and toured Europe from early June until early July, returning to the States to play 1 show at the New York Ritz on August 14. A new producer was sought for the band's next album and eventually Howard Benson, who was to produce the band's next 4 albums, was chosen. The band recorded at A&M Studios and Primetime Studios in Hollywood, and the resultant album, Bastards, was released on November 29, 1993. The single Don't Let Daddy Kiss Me included the song Born to Raise Hell, which also appeared on the album and would later be re-recorded with collaborative vocals from both Ice-T and Ugly Kid Joe frontman, Whitfield Crane, and released as a single in its own right. Although Bastards received airtime, the record company, ZYX, would not pay for promotional copies, so the band sent out copies themselves. A further tour of Europe was made throughout December that year. In February and March 1994, Motörhead toured the United States with Black Sabbath and Morbid Angel. In April the band resumed their tour of the States until early May, playing an engagement with the Ramones on May 14 at the Estadio Vélez in Buenos Aires, attracting a crowd of 50,000 people. The band toured Japan in late May and Europe in June, August and December 1994. Euro 1995 AA Euro Sacrifice. The band's 1995 touring schedule began in Europe in late April. In June, they went on a second tour with Black Sabbath, this time supported by Tiamat, until the band succumbed to influenza and headed back to Los Angeles, to Cherokee Studios in Hollywood, where they were to record an album. During the sessions it became clear that ʻmoʊtərhɛd was not extending himself and left the band after the recording. The title track from the album, Sacrifice, was later used in the movie Romeo and Juliet, a film in which Lemmy appears as the narrator. The band decided to continue as a 3-man lineup, and a tour of Europe was performed throughout October and the first 2 days of November. A 3-day tour of South America followed the week after. Lemmy celebrated his 50th birthday later that year with the band at the Whiskey A Go Go in Los Angeles. Metallica played at the event under the name The Lemmys. In 1996 the band began touring the States in early January and played 30 venues up to February 15. The 7-day tour of Europe in June and July was followed by 2 engagements in South America during August 1996. A Euro 1997 AA Euro Overnight Sensation, a tour of the United States with Dio and Spitball began with 2 shows in early October 1996 and concluded in Washington on December 4. During this time the band had recorded Overnight Sensation, at Ocean Studio and Trackhouse Recording Studio. The album was released on October 15, the first official album of the band as a 3-piece since Another Perfect Day, and the best distributed album the band had had for years. The band concluded the year's touring with 13 dates in Germany. During 1997, the band toured extensively, beginning with the first leg of the Overnight Sensation tour in Europe on January 12 at the London Astoria, where the guest musicians were Todd Campbell, Phil Campbell's son, on Ace of Spades, and Fast Eddie Clarke for Overkill. The European leg lasted until March and was followed by 4 dates in Japan, from late May to June 1, and an American tour with WASP. Throughout the rest of June. In August, 3 dates in Europe were followed by 7 dates in Britain, which ended with a show at the Brixton Academy on October 25, where the guest musician was Paul Linder, Lemmy's son, for Ace of Spades. A further 4 dates in October in Russia concluded the year 1997. 1998 a Euro 1999 AA Euro Snakebite Love and Everything Louder Than Everyone Else. Lemmy recalled that the touring was going particularly well, with some countries like Argentina and Japan putting the band in larger venues, and the English promoters discovered that they could turn a nice profit with Motörhead shows. In his opinion, the 3-piece lineup were performing excellently and it was high time they made another live record. The band did eventually, but made another studio album first, Snakebite Love, recorded in various studios and released on March 3, 1998. the band joined with Judas Priest at the Los Angeles Universal Amphitheater on April 3, to begin their Snakebite Love Tour. On May 21, ʻmoʊtərhɛd were recorded at the Docks in Hamburg. The tracks from this performance were later released as Everything Louder Than Everyone Else. The band were invited to join the UZIS tour and played dates across the States during early July until early August and were in Europe from early October until late November. The British leg of the tour was dubbed the No Speak with Forked Tongue Tour and included support bands group Dogue Drill, Radiator and Psycho Squad, which was fronted by Phil Campbell's son Todd. 2000s, 2000 Euro 2001 AA Euro We Are ʻmoʊtərhɛd and 25 and a live Bone Shaker DVD. In 1999 ʻmoʊtərhɛd made a tour of the States between April 20 and June 2, before going to Koro Studios in Brakel, Germany to record their next album, We Are ʻmoʊtərhɛd, which was released in May the following year. During the time the album's sessions took place, the band played at venues around Europe, the first of which was at Fila Forum in Assago, near Milan, where Metallica's James Hetfield joined the band on stage to play Overkill. In October and early November, the band toured the States with Nashville Pussy. Throughout the rest of November, the band conducted their European Monsters of the Millennium tour with Manowar, Dio and Lion's Share, ending the millennium with 2 shows at the London Astoria. The 2 shows were billed under the Kerrang! X-Fest banner and at the first show were supported by Backyard Babies, and during the second show guest vocals were provided by Skin from Skunk Anansi and Nina C. Alice from Skew Siskin for Born to Raise Hell, and Ace from Skunk Anansi played Overkill with the band. In May 2000, the release of We Are ʻmoʊtərhɛd and the single from it, a cover of the Sex Pistols' God Save the Queen, coincided with the start of the band's We Are ʻmoʊtərhɛd tour across South and North America during May and June, with a further 9 shows across in Europe in July. Shows in the United States and France were followed by the release of a double-disc compilation album, The Best of, on August 26. 4 dates in Japan preceded the band's 25th anniversary concert on October 22 at the Brixton Academy in London, where guest appearances were made by Fast Eddie Clarke, Brian May, Doro Pesch, Whitfield Crane, Ace, Paul Linder and Todd Campbell. The show also featured the return of the Bomber lighting rig. The event was filmed and released the following year as the 25 and a live Bone Shaker DVD, and the CD of the show, Live at Brixton Academy, was released 2 years after that. Lemmy states the reason for the DVD as wanting to record it for the posterity or whatever it is. I nodded off through the 10th anniversary, we never did anything on the 20th, so the 25th made sense. A tour of West and East Europe followed the anniversary concert, taking the band through October, November and December. The schedule for the Eastern European tour was quite brutal, involving 2 18-hour drives back-to-back and little time off. At the Warsaw venue the band did not arrive until 11 o'clock and the crew were still loading into the venue at 1 in the morning, while the fans waited. 2002 Euro 2003 AA Euro Hammered. After taking a month off, the band began working on a new album at Chuck Reed's house in the Hollywood Hills. This album, Hammered, was released the following year. On April 1, 2001 the band gave a 1-song performance for Triple H's entrance at WrestleMania X7 at the Reliant Astrodome in Houston. The second leg of the We Are ʻmoʊtərhɛd tour began in May in Ireland, moving across to the United Kingdom. In Manchester, the band was supported by Gold Blade, and by Pure Rubbish at the 2 London shows. The second London show also included Backyard Babies and Paul Linder, who was guest musician for Killed by Death. Between June and August, ʻmoʊtərhɛd played at a number of rock festivals in Europe, including as the Graspop Metal Meeting in Belgium, the Quart Festival in Norway, and the Wacken Open Air on August 4, where 4 songs were recorded for the 25 and a live Bone Shaker DVD. The band returned to the States for a 7-show tour between late September and early October. In April 2002 a DVD of some of ʻmoʊtərhɛd's performances from the 70s and 80s along with some stock footage of the band was released as the Best of ʻmoʊtərhɛd. 2 weeks earlier, the Hammered album was released and supported by the Hammered Tour, which kicked off in the States at around the same time. The United States dates continued until late May, and a European leg followed between June and August. In October, the band played 5 dates in Great Britain with Anthrax, Skew Siskin and Psycho Squad. The final venue was the Wembley Arena in London, where instead of Psycho Squad, the band was supported by Hawkwind, with Lemmy performing Silver Machine on stage with them. Throughout the rest of October and better part of November, the band were on a European tour with Anthrax. In April and May 2003, the band continued to promote the Hammered album in the States, and on the 3 dates Phil Campbell had to miss, his mother having died, Todd Youth stood in for him. Between late May and mid-July the band played 7 dates at summer festivals in Europe, and from late July until the end of August, they were touring the United States with Iron Maiden and Dio. On October 7 a comprehensive 5-disc collection of the band's recordings covering 1975–2002 was released as Stone Deaf Forever. On September 1, 2003, the band returned to Hollywood's Whiskey A Go-Go Club for the Hollywood Rock Walk of Fame induction. During October, the band performed a tour of Great Britain with the Wild Hearts and Young Heart Attack. The band performed 7 shows across Belgium, the Netherlands and Spain between 21st and 28th October, and from late November until early December they were in Germany and Switzerland, touring with Skew Siskin and Mustache. On December 9, the previously recorded Live at Brixton Academy album was released. 2004 Euro 2005 AA Euro Inferno and Stage Fright. On February 22, 2004 Motörhead performed an invitation-only concert at the Royal Opera House in Covent Garden, London. At summer festivals in South America during May. And also Europe during June, July and August. The band had already spent time in the recording studio, working on their next album, Inferno, which was released on June 22 and was followed by the Inferno Tour of Ireland with Class of Zero for 3 dates, before being joined by Sepultura and taking it to Great Britain. Some of the London show at the Hammersmith Apollo was filmed for TV as Gene Simmons introduced the extra opening act, the Class A Euro, a band made up of schoolchildren appearing in his Channel 4 series, Rock Shaola A Euro, and ʻmoʊtərhɛd joined as guest musician for Overkill. The band continued the tour with Sepultura across Europe through the rest of November and December. At the show in Magdeburg, Germany on December 4, Motörhead joined Sepultura on stage during their support slot playing the song Orgasmatron, in celebration of Sepultura's 20th anniversary. The show on December 7 at the Philippsthal in Düsseldorf was recorded and later released as the Stage Fright DVD. Motörhead picked up their first Grammy in the awards of 2005 in the Best Metal Performance category for their cover of Metallica's Whiplash and Metallic Attack, The Ultimate Tribute. From March until early May, the band toured the United States, and in June and August were on the 30th anniversary tour in Europe. On August 22, the band were the subject of an hour-long documentary, Live Fast, Die Old, which was aired on Channel 4 as part of the Other Side series of documentaries, filmed by new and established directors. On September 20, a compilation album containing the band's appearances on BBC Radio 1 and a concert recording from Paris Theatre, London, was released as BBC Live and In Session. In October, the band toured Europe with Mondo Generator before returning to Great Britain to tour with In Flames and Girls' School in October and November. During the show at the Brixton Academy on November 19, Lemmy joined Girls' School on stage to play Please Don't Touch. Motörhead finished the year's tours in December, with 2 engagements in New Zealand and 5 in Australia with ʻmoʊtərhɛd ʻmoʊtərhɛd. Also in 2005, Motörhead played on the Valleconchio's Farewell Festival bar Paragraph HSE Uncles at Lausitzring. In 2006, the band performed a 4-date House of Blues tour in the States in March with Mudrum, and from June until early August played at European open-air festivals with some indoor headlining shows. On October 28, the band performed at the Rock Freakers Ball in Kansas City before heading off to tour Great Britain with Clutch and Crucified Barbara, 2006 A Euro 2007 AA Euro Kiss of Death. While that tour was still going, their next album, Kiss of Death, was released on August 29, 2006 via Sanctuary Records, with a video for Be My Baby. The tour ended with an engagement on November 25 at the Brixton Academy, where Phil Campbell was guest guitarist for Killed by Death played during Crucified Barbara's support set. A further 12 shows in Europe with Motörhead took them through the end of November to early December, the first 2 shows also featuring Stu Siskin. In November, the band agreed to a sponsorship deal with the Green Bank B under-10s football team from North Ickenham, Lincoln, putting the band's name as well as Warpig on the team's shirts. The under-10s run out to Ace of Spades. Lemmy is old friends with Gary Waite, the team's manager. Waite sent an email off to them and they came back and said it was a great idea, and hopes the deal will draw inspired performances from his team. On April 25, 2007, the band played at the Poliedro de Caracas in Caracas, Venezuela, and on April 29 at the Fundia Section No Progreso, Rio de Janeiro. In June, Môutərhɛd played an engagement at the Royal Festival Hall as part of Jarvis Cocker's Meltdown. On February 26, 2008, No Sleep Till Hammersmith was reissued again as a 2-disc CD. 2008 a 2009 a Môutərhɛd. From March through to June 2008, the band convened in Los Angeles with producer Cameron Webb to begin work on their 19th album Môutərhɛd. Mickey D's drum tracks were recorded at Dave Grohl's studio. Môutərhɛd was released on August 26. It does not feature artwork from Joe Pettigno, the artist who designed many of their classic album covers. In June 2008 the band performed at the main stage of the Download Festival. Between 6th and 31st August, Môutərhɛd joined with Judas Priest, Heaven and Hell and Testament on the Metal Masters Tour. On August 20 the band played one date at the Rosalind Ballroom, New York, as part of the Volsom Tour 2008, which continued with bands The Misfits, Airborne, Valiant Thought and Year-Long Disaster at House of Blues, Anaheim, California on September 2, playing a further 13 dates. The band concluded the tour without the supporting bands, playing one more show at the Rosalind Ballroom on September 20, and the final engagement, at the Stone Pony, Asbury Park, New Jersey on September 21. On September 30, Reuters reported that Noverdi Studios had signed a deal with Lemmy and Môutərhɛd to develop and market Lemmy's Castle and Motörhead Stadium inside the virtual world of Entropia Universe, an online virtual universe. The year's touring ended with a 34-day tour of Europe with a variety of support bands including Danko Jones, Saxon, Witchcraft, and Airborne. On March 6, 2009, the band played in the Middle East for the first time, at the annual Dubai Desert Rock Festival in Dubai. On April 1  Môutərhɛd are reported to have entered into a 2-year sponsorship deal with UK roller derby team the Lincolnshire Bombers Roller Girls. In November 2009, the band are being supported by NWOBHM veteran Sweet Savage on the Irish leg of the tour and punk and goth rock legends The Damned on the UK leg of their world tour. On the Damned's official website, Captain Sensible is quoted as saying, "Ha ha. We're working with Lemmy again, are we? Excellent. He's the real deal, the absolute antithesis to all that the likes of Simon Cowell stand for. And for that we should all be grateful. This tour will be a celebration of all things rock and roller. Pity the poor roadies is all I can say." 2010s, 2010 a Euro 2012 a Euro The WAP Paragraph RLD is yours and The WAP Paragraph RLD is ours, Volume 1. In a November 2009 interview with Abort magazine's ES Day, Lemmy stated that Môutərhɛd would enter the studio in February 2010 to rehearse, write and record their 20th studio album, to be released on December 14, 2010. The album was recorded with Cameron Webb and Welsh producer Romesh Dodang in Longwave Studio, Cardiff. In an interview with Hungarian television in July 2010, drummer Mickey D announced that the album was finished, with 11 tracks. The album's name was said to be The WAP Paragraph RLD is Yours. On November 3, 2010, Future plc, a UK media company, announced that Môutərhɛd were to release The WAP Paragraph RLD is Yours via an exclusive publishing deal with Classic Rock magazine on December 14. The standard CD release of the ʻmoʊtərhɛd Is Yours would go on sale on January 17, 2011, through Motörhead's own label, Motörhead Music. To coincide with the release of their upcoming album, Motörhead embarked on a 35th anniversary UK tour, from 8 to November 28, 2010, and a European tour from November 31, 2010 to December 19, 2010. They also took their tour to the Americas in 2011. In October, the band recorded a slow blues version of their longtime hit Ace of Spades for a TV spot for Kronenbourg beer. The file will be available for free download from the Kronenbourg website. On December 5 the single Get Back in Line was released, followed by the release of a video for the single on December 6. In December, Mickey D stated to French journalists that Motörhead are planning to release a box set with several DVDs in 2011. He did not give any details but said that it will come in a beautiful package including many surprises. On January 17, 2011, it was announced that Motörhead would be part of the Sonosphere Festival in Knebworth. In August 2011, they headlined the Brutal Assault Open Air Festival in the Czech Republic. On March 2, 2011 Motörhead performed on Late Night with Jimmy Fallon. On July 9, 2011, former guitarist ʻmoʊtərhɛd Rizal died of a heart attack. In an interview at Germany's Wacken Open Air Festival on August 6, 2011, Lemmy said that the next Motörhead album may be an album featuring song covers. In celebration of their 35 years on the road, it was announced on November 24, 2011 the release of the ʻmoʊtərhɛd Is Ours, Vol. 1, Everywhere Further Than Every Place Else, a live DVD of Motörhead's last global tour to date including performances on November 16, 2010 at Manchester's O2 Apollo, on February 28, 2011 at New York City's Best Buy Theatre and on April 9, 2011 at Santiago de Chile's Teatro Caupolicán. On December 19, 2011, it was announced that Motörhead would playing at the German festivals Rock am Ring and Rock im Park in Nürburgring and Nuremberg respectively in June 2012. Linkin Park, Metallica, Soundgarden, The Offspring, Opeth and Marilyn Manson were also on the bill. On January 12, 2012, it was announced that Motörhead were touring the United States and Canada in early 2012. Along with three other metal bands Megadeth, Volbeat and Lacuna Coil. The gig and tour took place from January 26 to February 28, 2012. Motörhead didn't play the final four shows during this tour, since Lemmy has experienced a combination of a viral upper respiratory infection and a voice strain, resulting in severe laryngitis. Lemmy wrote this message on Facebook: "I'm giving my voice a good rest, hoping he would recover soon to play at the Mayhem Festival, which was held from June 30 to August 5, 2012. Motörhead also took part on June 23 in the Rock A Field Luxembourg Open Air Festival in Rosa, Luxembourg, 2012. The ʻmoʊtərhɛd Is Ours, Volume 2 and Aftershock. In an April 2012 interview with Classic Rock Revisited, Lemmy was asked if Motörhead were planning to make a follow-up to the ʻmoʊtərhɛd Is Yours. He replied, "We have not started writing any songs yet but we will. We put out an album out every 2 years. I will continue to do that as long as I can afford an amp." On June 28, 2012, Lemmy told Urban Reporter that Motörhead will release their next album in 2013 and they had written about 6 songs so far. On October 23, 2012, Lemmy told Billboard.com that the band had planned to enter the studio in January to begin recording the album for a mid-2013 release. On February 28, 2013, it was announced that Motörhead had begun recording their new album. Motörhead released the live DVD The ʻmoʊtərhɛd Is Ours, Volume 2, Any Place Crazy as Anywhere Else in September 2012. On June 18, 2013, the new album's title was revealed to be Aftershock. In mid-November 2013, Motörhead were due to embark on a European tour alongside Saxon, followed by a tour in Germany and Scandinavia due to last until mid-December 2013, but the dates were postponed and rescheduled for February and March 2014 due to Lemmy's health problems. However, in January 2014, Motörhead announced the cancellation of the new February and March dates of their European tour as Lemmy was still to reach full recovery from diabetes-related health problems. But the same month, the band was confirmed for Coachella Festival to take place across 2 weekends in spring 2014 in Indio, California, the exact dates to be revealed as 13th and 20th April 2014. In February 2014, Motörhead confirmed a summer tour 2014 with 8 European dates in France, Switzerland, Italy, Germany, Russia and Ukraine. In March 2014, the band announced a Los Angeles date on April 11, 2014 at Club Nokia. Later on, 2 new dates on 17th and 18th April 2014 respectively in Las Vegas and San Francisco were added. Still in March 2014, Motörhead announced that 3 heavy metal bands Megadeth, Anthrax and themselves will perform from 22 to September 26, 2014 at the first annual Motörhead's Motörhead RBOAT cruise on board the Carnival Ecstasy, due to sail from Miami and visit the ports of Key West and the Cozumel Island just off Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. Style. In a biography of the band, senior editor for AllMusic, Stephen Levine, wrote, Motörhead's overwhelmingly loud and fast style of heavy metal was one of the most groundbreaking styles the genre had to offer in the late 70s, and though Motörhead wasn't punk rocker, they were the first metal band to harness that energy and, in the process, they created speed metal and thrash metal. Whether they created these genres might be subject to debate, but Motörhead were unquestionably influential. In 2011 Lemmy said, "We were not heavy metal. We were a rock and roll band. Still are. Everyone always describes us as heavy metal even when I tell them otherwise. Why won't people listen?" Lemmy has stated that he generally feels more kinship with punk rockers than with metal bands. Motörhead had engagements with fellow Brits The Damned, with whom he played bass on a handful of late 1970s engagements, as well as having penned the song Ramones as a tribute to the Ramones. Motörhead, Lemmy states, have more in common aesthetically with The Damned than Black Sabbath, and nothing whatsoever in common with Judas Priest. Lemmy says he feels little kinship with the speed metal bands Motörhead have inspired. They've just got the wrong bit. They think that being fast and loud is the whole thing and it isn't. The guitar solos are not really difficult for a guitar player, it's just playing scales. To feel a solo and bend into it, and I mean Hendrix is the best guitarist you've ever seen in your life. And he learned from people like Buddy Guy, Lightnin' Hopkins and people like that inspired Hendrix. To be influenced by something, you're gonna have to play it the same. The NME stated that their brief solos were just long enough to open another bottle of beer, while a 1977 Stereo review commented that they know they're like animals, and they don't want to appear any other way. In view of the many ugly frogs in heavy metal who think they are God's gift to womankind, these Quasimodos even seem charming in their own way. Motörhead's approach has not changed drastically over the band's career, though this is a deliberate choice. Erstwhile Motörhead drummer Phil "Filthy Animal" Taylor said that rock icons like Chuck Berry and Little Richard never drastically altered their style, and, like them, Motörhead preferred to play what they enjoyed and did best. This fondness for the first decade of rock and roll is also reflected in some of Motörhead's occasional cover songs from that era. Lemmy often plays power chords in his bass lines. When asked about whether he had begun as a rhythm guitarist, he stated, "No, I play a lot of notes, but I also play a lot of chords. And I play a lot of open strings. I just don't play like a bass player. There are complaints about me from time to time. It's not like having a bass player. It's like having a deep guitarist." Supporters, Motörhead bangers. During the 1979 Bomber Tour of Great Britain, the band met with writer Alan Burridge, who then produced the first Motörhead magazine. Around the same time, Drummer Phil "Filthy Animal" Taylor's sister, Helen Taylor, had started the Motörhead Bangers fan club. Burridge and Taylor worked together to print the latest news for Motörhead fans. The first fanzine was published in January 1980. The Motörhead Bangers fanzine is printed 3 times a year, and has 3,000 subscribers. Paul Hayden, who had worked on the cartoon style of the early Motörhead Bangers fanzines with Chris Harris during Helen Taylor's leadership, and also drew the comic strip art included with the Another Perfect Day album, died at his home in Leeds in late July 2007, at age 50. WWE, Motörhead are well known in the professional wrestling world for performing popular wrestler Triple H's entrance music, The Game, which he has used as his entrance music since January 2001. In addition to the song playing whenever Triple H appears on WWE programming such as Raw or SmackDown, and at other pay-per-view wrestling events, the band have performed the song Live for him at WrestleMania X7 and WrestleMania 21. Their song Rock Out was also used as the theme song of the WWE pay-per-view Unforgiven in 2008. Motörhead also provided the entrance music for Triple H's faction Evolution, entitled Line in the Sand. The Game was released on both the American version of the Hammered and WWF The Music, Volume 5 albums, and Line in the Sand was released on the WWE Theme Addict, The Music, Volume 6 album. Motörhead have since performed a new entrance track for Triple H, entitled King of Kings, which made its debut at WrestleMania 22. Triple H often introduces the band in concert. Tribute bands. Motörhead acknowledge the tribute bands they have spawned, listing many of them on their website. The first tribute band based in the UK is Motörhead, which was formed in May 2003. Based in Sheffield, the band still features original founder member Rob Motörhead as Lemmy. During their career, they have been joined on stage by Fast Eddie Clarke in 2005, and supported Girl School. Other tribute acts in Europe include Overkill from Norway, Paragraph and Bears, Ace of Spades from Varberg, Motorrock from Germany, Motörhead and Currency from Finland, Motörhead from Belgium, Snageltoa Paragraph TH from the Netherlands, Motörhead RMENT from Germany, Motörhead from Moscow, No Remorse from Athens, and Motörhead Treba 1/4 TE from Slovakia. Italian acts include Motörhead from Latina, Bastardi, Motörhead Kilmister, Reptiles, Motörhead from Mortara, and Motörhead from Spain. Tribute acts in the US and Canada include Motorizer from Ottawa, Motörhead from Toronto, Elderhead from New York City, and Capricorn USA from Austin. Tribute albums. Motörhead have been the subject of several tribute albums, markedly in the years since 1999. Genres range from hardcore punk and rock, to black and death metal and industrial. Built for Speed, a Motörhead tribute, 1999, Victory Records, various hardcore and punk artists, a Motörhead tribute, 2000, Pink Honey Records, various rock artists, tribute to Motörhead, 2006, Crimson Mask, various black metal and death metal artists, Dead Forever, tribute to Motörhead, 1999, Dwell, various death metal and industrial artists, Make 'em Deaf Forever, a tribute to the loudest band in the world, Motörhead, 1997, Homenaje Motörhead, Spanish release, 2005, El Diablo, Remember Me Now. I Am Motörhead, 2005, Scatboy Records, USA, Motörhead Room for Paragraph Size a tribute to Motörhead Part 1, 2001, Remedy Records, St. Valentine's Day Massacre a tribute to Motörhead, 2005, Bad Reputation Records, Strength to Endure a tribute to Ramones and Motörhead by Ryogun and Bullet Treatment, 2002, Basement Records, Sheep and Wolves Clothing, 2008. Compiled and released by the band's fan club, Motörhead Bangers World. Features contributions from the Deviants with Filthy Animal Taylor and Girl School with Fast Eddie Clarke, Motörhead India, Tribute album, 2013 are released by Iron Fist Records featuring Millennium, Witchgoat, Albatross, Dying Embrace, Mortar, Bivorcea, Shepherd, Solar Deity, Gene and Miskatonic, Dormant Inferno, 1833 AD, Purgation. Cover art, the band's name is usually printed in a lowercase form of black letter. The umlaut character or paragraph is possibly derived from the similar heavy metal umlaut in the name of their 1975 acquaintances Blue Oyster Cult. However, this umlaut does not alter the pronunciation of the band's name. When asked if Germans pronounce the band Motörhead, Lemmy answered no, they don't. I only put it in there to look mean. Snaggletooth is the fanged face that serves as the symbol of Motörhɛd. Artist Joe Pettigrew drew it in 1977 for the cover of the band's debut album, having met Lemmy while doing some work with Hawkwind. Pettigrew stated, "The inspiration came from just being a naturally pissed-off bastard. And Lemmy's the same way. So it was bound to be an alchemical wedding of a more primordial nature. I did a lot of research on skull types and found a crossbreed gorilla-wolf-dog combination would work nicely with some oversized boar's horns." Lemmy added helmet, chains, spit, spikes and grit. Eddie Clarke was less sure about the imagery to begin with. "I shuddered when I saw it the first time. I thought, blimey, this ain't gonna go down that well, because it was just way over the top, then. But I grew to love it. At first it was not scary or horrifying, it would have been, in those days, deemed bad taste. It has remained a symbol of Motörhäd throughout the years, with Pettigrew creating many variations of Warpig for the covers of ensuing albums. To date, only 2 of the original covers for Motörhäd's 20 studio albums do not feature any variation of Warpig on the cover, On Parole and Overnight Sensation, and was in any case reissued with a black Warpig on a white background. Phil is wearing a Warpig badge on the cover of Ace of Spades. The cover of Iron Fist depicts a metal gauntlet wearing 4 skull-shaped rings, one of which is Warpig, while the rear of the album sleeve shows a fully detailed 3D metal sculpture of the symbol. Originally the Warpig design included a swastika on one of the helmet's spikes. This was painted out on later re-releases of the albums on CD. On September 21, 2007, Pettigrew announced that there will be no more heads from my hand, citing irreconcilable differences between himself and the band's current management, Singerman Entertainment. Pettigrew stated, "It has been a long, exciting and industrious journey, full of art and intuition, difference in repetition, and creative innovation. I feel I accomplished something unique in metal history over the last 31 years by breathing life again and again into a figment of my own imagination, an image or better an entity which has taken on a life of its own, which I actually believe goes beyond the music it was created to represent. I'm damn proud of that." In reply, Lemmy stated, "As many of you know, we have been working with Joe Pettigrew for 31 years. We always treated Joe fairly, and I would like to stress that at no time did my manager demand what Joe thinks he demanded. It is all a colossal misunderstanding. We have always loved his artwork, obviously, and if he now decides to stop working with us, we have no choice but to use someone else. However, if he will not discuss this personally and try to work things out, I think it's a great tragedy. If Joe continues with us, no one would be more delighted than me. If it's goodbye, Joe, I wish you well, but I hope, even at this stage, to be reconciled and continue our association." Members. Current members: Ian "Lemmy" Kilmister lead vocals, bass guitar, Phil Wizard Paragraph Campbell guitar, backing vocals, Mickey Durr drums. Discography: Motörhäd, Overkill, Bomber, Ace of Spades, Iron Fist, Another Perfect Day, Orgasmatron, Rock 'n' Roll, 1916 March a Paragraph a Die, Bastards, Sacrifice, Overnight Sensation, Snakebite Love, We Are Motörhäd, Hammered, Inferno, Kiss of Death, Motorizer, The WAP Paragraph RLD Is Yours, Aftershock, Filmography, 1987, Eat the Rich, soundtrack includes Nothing Up My Sleeve, Built for Speed, Orgasmatron, Dr. Rock, On the Road, Eat the Rich, and Bess AA Euro New Line Home Entertainment. Halfway through shooting, the idea of gradually replacing the members of the ballroom band with Motörhead was hit upon. At first there are no Motörhead personnel, then Phil Campbell appears, followed by Motorizer and Phil Taylor. The scene involving Lemmy riding a motorcycle is played by a female stunt double, as Lemmy was on tour with Motörhead in America at the time the scene had to be shot. 2010, Lemmy, 2011, the WAP paragraph RLD is RC Euro Vol 1 AA Euro Everywhere Further Than Ever Place Else, Notes. References, Buckley, Peter. The Rough Guide to Rock. London, Rough Guides. ISBN A1-85828-201-2. Further reading, Lemmy, White Line Fever. Simon & Schuster. ISBN 0-684-85868-1. Harry Shaw, Lemmy. In His Own Words. Omnibus Press 2002. ISBN 0-7119-9109-X. Alan Burridge, Motörhead Live to Win. Cleopatra 2012. ISBN 0-9636193-8-1. External links. Official website, Motörhead at AllMusic, Motörhead at DMOZ, interview with Lemmy 122,010 German Austrian Culture Channel 3 Sat Kulturs Eat, article on Motörhead in Sabotage Times.